have a few questions. The teacher, I don't know if there are question cards, or how do the teachers, do you have some plan as to how to manage questions, or should I just call on people? I know people a lot of people filled out question cards, right?
Yeah.
You have your own question cards, so I just call on you. Okay. I'll just call on some people at random. I'll start with you.
All right. Should I use the microphone? Oh, okay. Were you scarred from this period of time in your life? If so, how?
Did everybody hear the question? Okay, this is one rule I'm going to give you. If you didn't hear something, you have to say, I didn't hear it. His question was I scarred from this experience, and if so, how? And I have to say there are no stupid questions, and there are no wrong questions. And there's nothing that is going to offend me or make me feel bad, so you don't have to worry. If you have think you might embarrass me, you can't. Probably. Okay, so the answer to that question is no. Not only was I not scarred, I felt like it was probably one of the most valuable experiences I had in my whole life, certainly in my whole high school career. I was about your age. I was just 14. It was a very difficult experience because, just talk a little bit about it. Ron Jones was a very charismatic teacher. You all know what that means? Yeah. Kids would cut classes to go to his classes. He was very dynamic, he was young, he was a really cool guy. And when he said we're going to do an experiment, when we all did the experiment was scary enough. The thing that was very devastating is when he told us it wasn't an experiment. Now it was, but he wanted to see what would happen if we thought it wasn't an experiment. I can't tell you how I was so devastated because he was one of my heroes. You know, you have a teacher you really love and think is really telling you real stuff, not just going blah, 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 and not just asking informatory questions but getting you to think about yourself and your life and the world. It was great. So what happens when there's someone who's dynamic and all of a sudden, oh my God, he's going in this totally horrible direction. Well, he just wanted us to know how easy it is for that to happen. You have a dynamic person and everybody starts following them just because they're a dynamic person. And they can manipulate things. That's what happened in Germany. Do you think that most of the German people knew what was going on? Not at the beginning, not for a long time. By the time most of them knew, some knew of course, but by the time the general population knew, it was too late. The consequences weren't just somebody yelling at you or embarrassing you in front of your peers. The consequences is you might lose your life, or your job, or your kids might lose their lives. There were real consequences if you went against what was going on. So when Jones said this was a real youth movement, it was like, oh my God. What was so valuable about this and why it didn't scar me was because this is human nature. People will do what they're told. Even with the littlest consequence, like I might get embarrassed in front of my friends, people will generally do what they're told. Unless no one's looking. You know, unless it's okay not to do what you're being told. And by that I don't mean that it's not important to respect authority. But what it means is that we're all very suggestible and manipulable. And knowing that, if you know how you can be manipulated emotionally by a social situation, or by what you read, without finding out what's true and what isn't really true, You know, the newspaper, the media is full of little tiny parts of truth. And then you can look into it. We have the internet. We have a lot of ways now of really going into depth about a lot of things. And it's important for you to think about them and question, find out the whole story. And that's what it did for me. It helped me realize, wow, I am suggestible, I'm manipulable, and I was less than most. I was one of the ones who tried to stop it. But if you don't know that you can be suggested, that people can plant thoughts in your brain or you're manipulable, or that that's true for everybody, it's big knowledge. Another question.
What did it feel like to not really have privacy or free will?
Free will, did you say? What would it be like not to really have privacy or free will? It was awful. I only had one friend I felt I could talk to. Has anybody ever been in a situation where they felt like there was nobody they could talk to? Raise your hand. If you felt like sometimes there was no one you could trust. Or just one person. Some of you. It may happen, you know, for this hardly anyone you can trust. So, it was like, you know, sometimes people get pulled out of class and you didn't know why. Or because they had said something, maybe even a joke to somebody. So feeling like there might be consequences for anything you thought or you felt or you said to somebody. And all the consequences, you might not get a good grade or something. That's not much of a consequence. It was an awful feeling. I don't think I ever felt like that. The one friend I had who I could trust, I still know him. We're still friends. It's you know, when you find out there's someone you can really trust, it's a very valuable thing. Another question.
Were any of your relationships ruined because of the wave?
The question was, were any of my relationships ruined because of the wave? No. No, not mine. I have to say there was a lot that went on that I didn't know about until I saw the video, the docudrama. Some of the stuff like about some of the fights and things about other kids from other schools, I just didn't know. You know, I think at that age, certainly, I mean, the 60s was a time of a lot of social, you know, people were very outspoken, there was a lot of protesting, a lot going on, but we didn't have social media. We didn't even have, you know, cell phones or, you know, everything was sort of a little slower. So there was not all this sort of separate private communication, which may have affected that, I don't know. But I think at that age, probably the age most of you are, you're not so aware of what goes on outside of your own immediate circle. So, I do remember feeling, you know, the last day when there was supposed to be the rally, Jones didn't even show up for class. And the guys who were sort of his bodyguards showed up to take us to the rally. And that's when I tried to get the class not to go. I said, don't go. And only one, I would say, only one person stayed back with me. Not my friend.
We read that in the book.
Not my friend. One of the most unlikely people, a young woman named Jean. To this day, I wonder about her, you know, because it took a lot of courage. She was not like the popular kid. But she had the courage to also let go. So in a way, if anything, it worked in the reverse. It created a friendship, a respect for a person who maybe I didn't really think very much about before then. Another question. How long did the wave last? This is a question of much discussion. Jones says it lasted a week. I think it was 2 weeks. Most number of us who were in it thinks it lasted certainly into the second week. And it was very shocking that it could go so far and have such a huge emotional impact in such a short time. And it started very simply, like, yeah. Yeah.
So, were you always against him, or were you just thinking?
Well, okay, here's the question. The question was, earlier I said I was one of the ones against him, and he said, was I always against him, or did I get kicked out, you asked? The first week or so, it was an experiment. So I went along with the experiment, because it was supposed to be just a game. I saw it was disturbing. But I didn't try to stop it. The second week, I didn't know what to do. You know, when he said it was real, I didn't know what to do. So the only thing that I did to try to stop it was that last day when it was supposed to be a rally. I wish I had known, I wish I had done more. You know, sometimes one of the few things I feel, I don't say I would feel bad about, but in terms of looking at the whole experience, I wish I had been the kind of person who, when I tried to get the class not to go, I could really have gotten them all not to go. But I didn't. Yeah.
If something like this was to be recreated, do you feel like we have a better chance of like, it not happening again, the same emotional impact on the way?
Do you mean like as an experiment in school? Would it have the same emotional impact or not? Is that your question? And you know, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think it's always shocking to find out what you'll do that you don't think you would do. It's always shocking to find out how much you can be influenced. And I don't know how social media would impact it. You know, it might be worse. It might be worse. Who thinks, does people have an opinion about that? Who thinks it might be worse? Who thinks it would be the same? Who thinks it would be easier? Okay, so most of us, you don't know, right? I just don't know. Yeah, it's hard to know. It's a good question. It's not a bad idea to imagine what it would be like. You know, maybe now sometimes it's hard for teachers to give their students that kind of valuable experience, but it's really good to imagine what it would be like to do that. Yeah, let's, okay. Yes. Young lady there. Did I lose anyone important to me, is your question? Okay, I think I kind of answered that no, it didn't really affect me in that way. You know what I mean? And also, I have to say, I was new in the school. I had just come from Chicago, so I didn't know a lot of these kids from before until that year. So I didn't have like a whole history with them from like first grade or something. So it might have affected me very differently if I had, I don't know. And then you have to face me and speak loud. How did the other people know about the way in other schools? Is that your question? Or in other countries? I don't know. I know in Germany it's required study. I'm not sure how the whole experiment got publicized. I don't know. Young man. Do I think he should be able to teach again? I think so, yeah. I mean, I think it was a brilliant experiment. He says he thinks it went too far. Now that I know some of the things that happened that I didn't know then, maybe that's true. But I've always felt like it was brilliant. When they fired him, they didn't renew his contract. The second year he did something called apartheid. You all know what that is? Apartheid. And then they didn't rehire him. There were demonstrations. All the students came out in favor of him. Almost all of them felt like it was a brilliant teacher. It was a very valuable experience. But some of the parents didn't like it. Let's see, maybe You can help me pick some people, 'cause oh, okay. What did I think about the way before everything got out of control? It was already very scary. It was already very scary, but you know, one of the slogans was strength through discipline. What do you think of that? Does that make sense? Strength through discipline. I'm a musician, you have to discipline, you have to work hard. There were a lot of slogans, strength through discipline, strength through community, strength through action. These made sense. They were good things. You couldn't argue with those. It was no big deal to stand up when you came in the room and sit with your hands folded. Those were no big things. When it got out of hand, it was, all of a sudden it was like, okay, you take something that's true, like strength through discipline, and you use it. Wasn't so good. Yeah. The question is, were there people from Germany migrating, this is like 20 years after the war. I don't know the German kids in the school at the time. My own heritage is German on my mother's side, so I know that my mom grew up, you know, it was a big thing. So you didn't want to say you were part German. And I even feel it sometimes, even now. And, you know, many generations in this country. So I don't know, but I do know that the German culture is very much in favor of educating their young people about this kind of problem. Yes? How do they become so what? Well, loyal to him. He was charismatic. We already loved him. We already thought he was the greatest. So, to go along with the game, what was the big deal? What was the big deal? And then, you know, it's a good question for each person. Why do you go along with something when it's not a game? You know, I think everybody here in this room might have their own answer. Like, is it, you know, social pressure, or afraid, or you don't know what else to do, or you don't care enough? Sometimes you just don't care enough. Yeah?
Was it scary to go back to that school and, bad memories?
Was it scary to go back to that school and did it bring back bad memories? No. No, because it was such a valuable experience. I'm very grateful. So it was not scary. And I was only a sophomore. We were not seniors, we were sophomores. So we stayed in the school for a couple of years after that. So, yeah. Do I think something like this could ever happen again? Absolutely. Without a doubt, anytime, anywhere. If people are not careful. If you don't think, what's going on? It could happen here. People say it couldn't happen here. It could happen here. It could happen anywhere. Yeah. What was the most powerful part of the way to be? I think it was just really realizing what I said before, how easily people get sucked into something. They stop thinking. How really good people, you know, I mean, the kids, this was an upper middle class, educated community. A lot of Jewish kids, a lot of kids whose parents and grandparents had lived through the Second World War. And they went along with it. Why would they do that? Why would they do that unless it could happen anywhere? Yeah. What do I think would have happened if nobody went against the wave? Well, I mean, I think Jones wasn't going to let it keep going. You know, he was, I think, shocked at how far it went and how much kids went along with it, especially given that this was the era of protest. You know, I mean, kids were protesting all over the place and going against all kinds of stuff, and we were studying more. So I think, I think he just was ready to stop it. I think he was, to stop it. Could it have gone on if it were a real movement? I think it could have. It could have. Because there were a lot of people who were very sincerely invested in getting their sense of who they were from belonging to a movement, belonging to something. But some of the kids didn't really have other stuff that they belonged to. So they were happy to be his bodyguards. I haven't been here for a while. Gotcha. What was my reaction when the wave started? Well, it just was a game. It was a game. It was okay. It was kind of fun at first, And I was a good kid. I was a good student, so I was happy to go along with it and get a good grade. Why not? But there we go. It didn't end up that way. In the back.